like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second? There a motion, may I have a second?
I'll go ahead and second the motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
When do you start this, Helen?
Pardon me?
When do you start?
Tomorrow. No, as soon as possible, really, because, I mean, it is really inefficient. We just, and plus with the move to the portable buildings, I was gonna try and see if we didn't have to move that machine over there. It's quite big.
Okay, and what happens if we have an insert?
An insert?
Yeah.
Oh, they can do the insert
They can do
as
the
well.
insert.
Yes,
They do it all.
and they're high quality. I mean, for the cost, it's a high quality.
Like
and
a newsletter.
Yeah, Henrietta mentioned the quantitative and the qualitative data, and the quality of the paper and the print is much nicer. And you can see the consumption history if you want that.
So with the labor savings, what projects do you have in mind?
Well, one of the things we just recently said, we sent all of our, including Helen, not that she necessarily needed it, but we sent all of our front desks to have customer service training. And so what we're hoping to do is this extra manpower for the girls running around and stapling to be able to give better customer service. One of the things that's gone out recently because of the USDA requirements, everybody has to sign a new agreement. And so we need to be able to reach out and call people and explain to them. So they'll have more time to free to do that. Literally, they will do overtime. I'm paying them late. And it's about 6 trays about this big for us to be able to do twice a month. And so we're going to be able to be more automated.
Right, what we've only done is just the commercial side of sending all the renewed agreements for our utilities. We still need to send the residential side. Just the commercial side alone was a gargantuan, arduous task, and I mean, we still need to do residential.
Gargantuan?
That one, yeah.
It's like,
It's not like the way they do it, we can stop at any time?
Yes, yes, and you said, what are we gonna do with our time? Also, we are very proactive now with the aged accounts and trying to work those accounts to make sure that everybody's paid. We're looking at the 30, 60, 90, 120, and anything in excess of that. We're being proactive, sending letters out to try and collect, and, you know, so that to me was not being done, and now it's being done.
I know Henrietta and I talked about some efficiencies in paying the bills. Maybe that'll be the next step.
We're doing, I think because I have some experience, I think we're doing very well. We have the pay by phone, we have where they can go utility online billing payment. We talked about the kiosk, anyway, that's still up in the air, but.
But we're really working hard to try to get more customer easier for people to be able to do that. And automation, it really helps us to do a whole lot more. But customer service is really important.
Yeah.
And Councilman Menez, we have more money for training. And so we've started having people go to training. And so customer service training, we want for the front because we want to
Okay,
get
I
to do
think
that.
you've already sold it, let's ask for citizens' comments. Anyone want to stand up and speak? Okay, no, let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Right now. 3-0. All opposed, 3-0. Thank you so much. When you sell a product, stop. Thank you. Okay, we've done item G, we've done H, we've completed I, we're going to J. C and A to approve amendments to the city's personnel policies regarding drug-free workplace policy. Mrs. Turner.
Yes, ma'am. And this is the same thing that you all had before, but I think one of the questions that came up was supervisors need to be trained. And so I believe someone in the audience mentioned, I believe it was Mr. Nick Neeson, mentioned a company. And so here's a company and some ideas of training that we can do. And you can have the training happen prior to us starting this policy. I can let your attorney speak to the policy, but we have information here that we can do training for reasonable suspicious supervisor training. It's locally here in San Antonio, and we've even done the research and said we can have someone come here and train all supervisors at the same time if we like, for a lot less money, but it's either or, because always somebody's going to be on vacation or something. So we found the training that's specifically for this, to take care of that training, to hopefully that we can address your concerns about having someone who's not trained to be able to have a reasonable suspicion to have someone drug tested. Chris?
I was going to say, as part of this, before a determination could be made by a supervisor, they would have had to have attended a training course, just to make sure that, like we said, you can't really put objective determinations on what is reasonable suspicion, but these courses help them to determine what is reasonable.
Council, y'all have questions? We've done this before.
So what will be the process then, Chris?
If the supervisor has a reasonable suspicion, they would, inform Henrietta that there is something going on, whatever it is. The individual would be told, you need to report for a screening. Because that costs money, Henrietta would have to sign off on that, because we only have such a budget for drug screening and everything else. They would go in, take the test. If it came back, that there was something at issue, then Henrietta would determine what to do from a personnel standpoint on it.
Any other questions?
So our new drug policy, the only time you would have any discretion, and I would take this training as well, would be if there was not an accident. Typically now, if you hit something or you're in an accident, you have to go take care of it. Police department employee, everybody, that's standard. This is speaking to, I don't know, somebody's acting familiar, a little strange, peculiar, then based on their training. Out of the ordinary. Then at the supervisor's discretion, but we definitely want to make sure everybody's properly trained.
I'll make the motion to approve this.
All right, I have a motion to approve the amendment to the city's personnel policy regarding drug-free workplace policy. May I have a second? I have a motion, do I have a second? There's no second? This one dies for the lack of second. Okay? We'll go on to the next item. CNA to approve the interlocal agreement with Wilson County for tax collection.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the standard contract that we always enter with the county. The central tax collector assessor, you go in, you pay your tax bill, the city portion is a part of it. Once collected, they remit the payments over to the city. So this is just an extension of the way we've been doing it. So we don't have to send out our own tax bills and go collect, and if somebody's late, go foreclose. It's all handled through the county.
So move.
I have a motion, may I have a second? For the interlocal agreement with Wilson County for tax collection.
I'll second
I have a motion and a second. Any citizens' comments? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed? 3-0. Are you awake, Madam Secretary?
Yes, 3-0, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Next item, CNA to approve purchase of police vehicles. So we're buying cars. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And again, I'm here on behalf of the previous approval on that tax note to purchase the two vehicles. Before you, I'm not sure if you'll have a packet that includes the price of the vehicle and the price of the equipment that comes with it.
They have what you said.
Okay. I'll get you the figures I have as well. Of course, each vehicle, or for two vehicles, it costs $64,048.70, and that's also through the buy board. Attached, I have a sticky note, which I didn't get a quote from, which was Southwest Public Safety, where we take our vehicles to remove and reinstall equipment, which is normally $400 each, and also $600 from Weston's, who does the decals for our vehicles. And then we have a quote from WatchGuard, which is our digital camera, and a quote from A&B Communications, which is the police radio, and then the Stalker radar, which is also included on the last page. And approximately, each equipped vehicle would run about $41,141.60. And I'd like to get y'all's approval for that and blessings course, if I'm able to salvage a police radio or a radar from an old unit that I'm gonna replace, of course, I'll do that. And that'll save us that dollar amount for either, for the
How
equipment.
much did we approve for the vehicle?
You approved for a block of money for vehicles, but it's enough to cover for two. Out of tax bill 2016.
I'll make the motion to approve the vehicle.
All right, we have the motion to approve the police vehicles. May I have a second?
I've got a second.
Motion and a second. Any citizens' comments? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Councilwoman Cantu, did you raise your right hand?
I'm sorry.
Four?
Four.
Okay, thank you.
3-0.
3-0. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor,
Thank you
Council.
so much. All right, item M, CNA to approve ordinance 2016-024, anti-idling.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is a push by the state of Texas and the Wilson County to kind of have a consolidated anti-idling to help with vehicle air emission program. It only applies to vehicles that are greater than 14,000 pounds gross weight. So if you're at the supermarket and you want to sit in the car and leave the AC on, it won't apply to the general populace. It's really for big rigs and things of that nature to keep the large emissions out. And even there's a litany of exceptions. If you've got to take a federally mandated break and there's no place where you can hook up to power in the sleeper cab, you're allowed to run it so that you can have air conditioning and things of that nature. So it's really just to prevent general wasteful idling of large vehicles. And what it would allow it to do is for Floresville police officers to issue citations and go forward with that, instead of requiring a report to the state and then have the state come down to investigate or send DPS troopers or something of that nature.
I so move to approve the ordinance.
I have a motion and a second to approve the anti-idling ordinance. Would you please read the
Yep.
caption?
This is ordinance 2016-024, an ordinance of the city of Floresville, Texas to implement and enforce the Texas state rule on locally enforced motor vehicle idling limitations and to approve entering into a memorandum of agreement with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to enforce this rule.
Thank you. Because I think we already have a motion and a second, so we did it a little bit backwards. It's okay. All right. Any citizens' comments? All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed? Did you raise your hand? I see. Okay. Madam Secretary, did you give a vote? 3-0. Thank you so much. Next item, CNA to conduct second reading of ordinance 2016-022, sanitary control. Did you write?
Yes, ma'am. This is the second reading of the water quality protection ordinance that was read at the last meeting that was held to provide a zone around each of the water wells that prohibits certain behavior that could contaminate the well. And I can read the ordinance caption if you'd like.
Please.
It's ordinance 2016-022, an ordinance of the city of Floresville, Texas, amending Title 15 of the city's Code of Ordinances to include a new Chapter 157 prescribing sanitary control regulations, establishing restrictions, providing for a penalty, providing for injunctive relief, providing for a repealer clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing for publication as required by law. And Monica, this was already published in the Wilson County News, correct?
That was the first one. This second.
Yeah, after the first reading was
Yes,
published,
after the first
this is
reading,
the
after
second reading now.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion to approve it. May I have a second?
Second.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Councilman Jimenez?
Councilman
Okay.
and Councilman Ayala need a second.
Okay.
Citizens' comments? All in favor? Raise your right
Aye.
hand. Okay, 3-0, none opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. On to the next one, item O, CNA to request permission to utilize county courthouse parking for city employees during construction on Floresville City Hall.
Yes, ma'am. As it said there, we're going to be under construction very soon. Probably next meeting will be the last meeting we'll have here for the remainder of 2017 until we move back in. Because of that, we have to start parking in other locations. And so we're gonna save this side of the building for construction crew and their dumpsters and things. And so we're gonna be limited on parking. And so we just can't automatically just go to our neighbor across the street and just park without permission, so we're asking for permission. I've had conversations with the judge and Commissioner Fowl to say they're amenable to this, and they said yes. But the attorney said we need to reduce it to writing, and so that's
I'll
what
make
this
the
is.
motion for you to go ahead.
All right, we have a motion to request permission to utilize county courthouse parking for city employees during construction of Floresville City Hall.
Henrietta, we're ready for construction, did we go out for bids?
No, sir, we're gonna go out to bid, the architects coming on December 8th, we're gonna go out to bid in January, probably start in February. But we need to get ahead, I don't
Preliminary
wanna,
stuff.
yeah, I don't wanna wait till the last minute.
A question on that. Can I ask a question?
Well, we have a motion.
On the parking,
Right, and the agenda item is limited to the parking.
Yeah. We have a motion. I need a second. To
Yeah.
authorize the parking.
Yeah,
Did you get a second? All right. Citizens' comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
3-0.
3-0. Thank you.
and just for the record, it's for zero money.
That was a half salute.
Well, chuckles count as eyes now.
All right. The next, we've done item Q, CNA to amend ordinance 2016-011, the cemetery regarding fees.
Yes, at one point in time, our former mayor, Mayor Garza, spoke of a pauper for people who can't afford to buy plots and those type of things. And there was one gentleman that came up recently that is in that same type of situation. He's been here, resident a long time, worked for Phelps, I believe, and he is actually indigent and didn't have insurance to help with the system for the burial. There is nothing in our current ordinance that speaks to that. I know we've done that before. The attorney is saying that we need to look at that. If you want to have a pauper type of thing, we need to put it into the ordinance. So you have the current ordinance, I believe, that was adopted in 2016-011 that talks about the veterans at a discounted rate. It talks about our first responders cleared in the line of duty to be buried free if they so choose to, but there's nothing that addresses someone who cannot afford to be buried. There's nothing in there about payments. We took that out, and the price did go up from $800 to $1,200. Is that right?
Yes.
And mimicking what they do at the Catholic cemetery. So if you have any suggestions or whatever, we can go back and look at that. But if you want to have that pauper, we
The
need to look
Sacred
at
Heart
that.
has a paupers, but they have guidelines. You know,
And we would
there's
use this.
guidelines that they have, that if you check off, if you fall into those guidelines, then they consider you, to do a pauper's burial. But I don't know how you want to handle that.
And that's-
have a limit? I mean, how
It is up to you. I mean, we have some areas available. We have some that we haven't even started into that.
Like, we have that whole section, that whole field that's by the what are those apartments? Those,
La Paloma.
the La Paloma Village, that whole section there that we can, mark off an area just for paupers burials.
No,
Do
I wouldn't want
you
that.
think it would be safe to say that you could do
Well,
it
because
2 a
they're
year
not gonna be,
or
they're not gonna be
something, or
marked.
You
If they
can,
can't afford to pay for the thing, they won't be
you can
marked.
say however you want to do it. I mean, to have it in a certain area, you can do that, or you can just say a plot is available, a plot is a plot.
Yeah,
So those type of things, I'm just looking for direction. I didn't want to leave it up to staff discretion as to do that, and we need to put it in order so that we can say, this is what you want.
You know, not everybody can afford to die, you know what I'm saying? But, with the prices and stuff that we have, there's people that don't have no family members or help or something, I don't know.
It can be quite expensive to bury someone. I mean, these
Yeah,
plots are
well, that's why I'm saying,
$1,200. We just bought
That's
a
a lot.
truck for less than that. But what we're looking for is direction as to how you want to amend this ordinance again if you care to. But the plots are now $1,200 rather than $800.
That's for a double stack.
The
I
for-
don't know what the standard.
And so we're looking for what you're looking for to provide this assistance. And of course, the connection to Floresville, either working here or longtime residents or whatever, we're looking for that, to be able to do that. So this is,
Floresville resident,
I'm sorry?
Floresville resident.
Yes, I mean, I think Floresville resident is some kind of key long-term, but I've been a Floresville resident, I've been here 3 years.
without burial insurance or insufficient burial insurance.
And we can take some of the things that, and model off of the Sacred Heart if you care to, but it's just not like, oh yeah, y'all just, it has crossed my desk since I've been here at least 6 different times.
Yeah.
And it's very agonizing for me to tell somebody they can't bury their loved one. They've gone through the agony and they cannot bury their loved one because I can't allow what the ordinance doesn't speak to.
Okay, but in this particular situation, we might not have all the answers tonight.
Correct, because there are things of how many can we limit it to every year? Practical concerns that unfortunately have to be taken into effect.
So-
300?
So the gen, so
I would,
I broke the rules, y'all. I went ahead and let them pay it on a payment plan. Hopefully they go ahead and pay it, but I had to do something. They had to, I think the services are tomorrow. So we got some payment and some other family members came and helped pay it, and they're doing it at $100 to do whatever they needed to do. And so we had to allow him to be buried. He's been working here for some time, and I had never met him, but everybody said he's Uncle Freddie, and I was not gonna let Uncle Freddie not be able to be. So
You know, it's sad, but, you know,
but there have been donations
That would
have
be
come
great.
in, they've taken up donations, he's coming to pay, they put it on layaway and they're paying. I did not give them a lot of time, but I had to make a decision, but I want it to be where it's not at my discretion or it gets to that point, we need to address that. So we can look at the Catholic Cemetery, Sacred Hearts as a model and bring it back to the council to look at, but it is something that needs to be added.
Well, I mean, you have to put parameters, because if it's something that the council wants us to bring back at a, you know, if we can.
Well, we know the resident tie-in, we can
Right.
limit to 2 or 3 a year if you care to. We can put that in there and highlight it. You all can make it 6 a year, 10 a year. We can talk about a certain area where any plot is available. We can put that kind of language.
I would say any area that's available, not necessarily, okay, paupers
Yeah.
are on this side.
Yeah, I mean, you know, road folks will
Sacred
bear
Heart
it.
has-
Or you
has
would,
a
you would
set
consider a
area,
payment plan like,
has a certain area.
Yeah, I mean, even if a payment plan, if you want to be able to do that. So we can bring that back, but I needed to have direction for you all to say that's something that I'm recommending that we look at that. Because
I
like I
wouldn't
said,
want a separate area, I would just want where.
the availability. Yes, ma'am, we don't want to treat them any differently.
And we do have to remember, and I know I sound like the cold callous one because I'm the lawyer and that's my job, but anybody who wants to take advantage of this, we have to find a way to verify these things, because if it's just somebody comes in and says, my father passed away and he had no assets and we have no assets, you never know if they're lying or telling the truth. So we have to find some way to have a verification, especially if we do have a limit of 2 or 3 of these a year, where the people that really need this program are the ones that get the benefits, not somebody that just doesn't want to pay
it's
$1,000.
almost like a welfare thing, you know.
Right.
So do we need guidelines?
He can come up with something, he's an attorney.
I would make a recommendation or a motion if it's appropriate, that on this particular case, we give the city manager full discretion.
You can ratify the city manager's decision or grant further full discretion if you'd like.
Thank you later, but I'll tell you.
Would it just be citizens from Floresville?
Yes.
I would say yes.
It'd be solely residential.
And in
Well,
this
that's one of
case,
the things I
You
wrote
to be
down.
buried.
Floresville resident, you said with insufficient burial insurance, any area, any plot area, y'all wanted any area, but how do you prove?
And the budget process, I would think the limit would be based on budget,
Budgeting availability every year.
but on this particular, I would
but
give you full discretion.
Uncle Freddie's good, he's good. He took it away.
Because
Do you want to make a motion on this?
Do we, what's the motion?
Just because we don't have anything in the ordinance right now, I would do CNA to ratify city manager's determination on
On this particular,
on
on the first.
on the current pauper's burial,
Yep.
and then we'll work on something and bring it back to council.
Okay, so moved.
city manager, ordinance,
To
Would you
ratify.
repeat that for our city secretary?
A motion to ratify
motion,
city manager's decision relating to pauper's burial.
and I'll go ahead and second it. Just proper clarity,
Yeah.
right, okay. And it was Councilman Tejada and.
And Councilwoman Country. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from citizens? No. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, one eye.
Yeah, we got all three.
One more.
We have three.
We have three.
His,
He's getting weak at his old age.
It's down here.
okay.
It's
It
getting
goes a
hard.
sliding
All
line.
opposed? Okay, so 3-0, thank you.
Let's do it.
Motion carries. Let's go to the very last one.
And
You ready?
Is that the last one?
Yes.
No, one more,
Well-
this one.
I'm gonna tell you right off, Mayor. I think we have way too many holidays.
We have to change the
Well, let me
employee
read it,
handbook.
please. CNA to approve
Matter of fact, I
2016.
think they ought to work every other weekend.
Do I need to use a
I'm in
gavel?
agreement with that
Do
one.
I need to use a gavel?
Let's go.
CNA to approve 2016-2017 city holidays.
This is actually belong to the city secretary.
It's, I mean.
It's
what
the
I'm
holiday
saying,
list that you
it's-
have
They're in
before
the
you.
employee handbook. That's the way.
This is the one that we have in the employee handbook and the CBA. We always have the CBA lurking in the corner, in observance of those days. And so here's a list of them. As you see, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day fall kind of funny, so we're giving the Friday before, the Monday after, so that's why it's not necessarily.
No, you said the Friday before.
The Friday before.
And then Monday is December 25th, so they get Christmas Day.
So they
But we don't get like the Tuesday.
I make a motion to approve the 2017 city holidays.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the city holidays. Did I have a second? Did I hear a second on this?
I guess.
All right. I have a motion and a, would you,
I made a second.
thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the city holidays for 2016-17. Any citizens' comments? None. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
3-0.
Okay, 3-0.
And
Motion
before
carries.
we adjourn, I wanna, thank you for everything you and, Councilman Tejada and the mayor, for everything you have done to move our city forward. It has been an honor to have, had the opportunity to work with you all.
Thank you, dear.
And
Thank
I
you.
will miss you all.
We appreciate that, but we have one more meeting. You can say that again next week.
Oh, really?
Okay. I'll second the motion, okay?
Meeting's adjourned.
I'll
Time,
second.
Mayor, can you mark the time? What are you?
It is,
10:05?
10:06. Hey, 10:08.
10:08?
No,
Okay.
one more.
One more.
All right, you don't get to run out yet, Mayor.
Next Thursday, it's a special day. Seat the new council.
I do need 2 signatures, right, for next Thursday's meeting. Will 2 mayor sign?
You're good.
Unless you want somebody.
I need 2 people to sign.
It's better.
I need 2 signatures.
This is all the signatures. So everyone's,
I think it's this time change.